Bonjour, friends. Bonjour, bonjour. Cynthia here with another episode of The Crown Voice. I am the queen of pageant talk, and today's discussion is going to be why are married women competing in beauty pageants? This live conversation will shock you. So, if you are a woman who competes in beauty pageants, or you know a woman who is married and she would love to compete in beauty pageants, I encourage you to stay tuned. I encourage you to share this live. I am going to have an insightful conversation with my guest, Rachel, who is the CEO and the founder of Mrs. Pageantry. So, my friends, how are you all doing? How is everyone? Bon dia, bon dia. We are waiting for our guest to arrive. And yes, we are going to be talking about why married women are competing in beauty pageants. Let's see if my guest is. So, how are you all doing, everyone? How are you? It's a cool Wednesday afternoon here in Massachusetts, and here is my guest.
Hi.
Hi, Rachel.
Oh, good to see you. How
Good
are
to
you?
see you. It's been such a long time.
Give me just a minute to get my
Sure.
things together.
Yes, I'm doing the same here.
How is
I can't hear you. Okay, I can hear you now.
okay? How is Pageant Hubby? How is Zeke?
Z, pageant hubby, they are well. He asked about you. You know he's your friend. How is your husband and children?
We are doing well. Everyone is at school and at work, and we are just kind of shuffling along. Getting back into the rhythm of school being back in session. So all is well.
Well, first,
All is
thank you
well.
so much for accepting my invitation and being here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. Always a good time to talk to Miss
Yeah,
Cynthia. Come on, this is.
the last time we spoke was this time last year. This time last year, you gave me a platform on Mrs. Pageantry when I had that situation with the last pageant I competed in, and you gave me a voice. And from that moment, I created this platform to give other women a voice with their issues in pageantry. So thank you for that. I really appreciated that.
Well, Cynthia, anyone who knows you knows that you don't have to be given a voice, but I was certainly, certainly happy to share my platform as your sister in pageantry. I felt like it was very important what you were speaking about was something that affected so many of us, and it was an important message to share and to talk about and to be transparent on. So I really appreciate you stepping out and doing that because I felt so many ladies it gave them a confidence that they didn't know that they needed or didn't have prior to hearing you speak out and share your experience. So
Thank you. Thanks again. So
very valuable.
Rachel, thank you. Mrs. Pageantry. I remember 3 years ago when I first, was it 3 years? 3 or 4 years ago when I first said I will be competing as a married woman. Somehow we connected. We became friends through DMs on Instagram. You were so encouraging. I believe you had just started, you just launched Mrs. Pageantry at that time. And I was asking you for direction and certain questions about this different platforms, which one was more suited to what I stood for. And you were very resourceful at the time. So, what gave you the idea, the inspiration to create Mrs. Pageantry?
So Cynthia, this started really shortly after I had my title as Mrs. Michigan America 2019, just one of the most incredible experiences of my life. That year, we were kind of simultaneously, there was so much going on with the Miss USA organization and the Miss Universe organization. And I remember feeling like here I was getting ready to compete for Mrs. America, one of the most prestigious Mrs. pageants of its kind. And there was no coverage. There was no
Mm,
interviews. No one was talking about it. And at the same time, there was also nowhere to do research. When I was prepping for Mrs. America and I was looking to find out, well, what did ladies wear for interview in the years past? Or or even specifically, what did women of color wear? What things would look, so not just for myself, but even for other women, there was no resource at that time to find this information, to kind of do your research, to prepare. And so at that time, I reached out to a very prominent Miss USA blog and kind of asked, how did you get started? Tell me, and that was kind of how Mrs. Pageantry came about.
Wow. And at that time, was there any other platform? Well, you did say that you couldn't find anything, so you had to reach out to a Miss. Was that MISS or MS?
That was MISS. There were so many of those, of just pageant blogs for you to follow, Miss America, Miss USA, but really nothing at that time that was prominent in the Mrs. division.
What current challenges do you think, or do you see married women who compete in beauty pageants are currently facing, as opposed to the other women?
Um, you know, I think the biggest challenge is just where to get started, because so many misses, it's not something that you hear about often. Certainly it's more acceptable for a miss to do a pageant. I know for myself, when I went to compete, there was lots of questions of, oh, are you going to have a talent? Are you going to have, so a lot of it is just getting over the hump of educating your family and your friends about what Mrs. Pageantry is.
Is beauty pageants for married women relevant?
Oh,
And why?
absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. I think um, beauty pageants for Miss, there is one common denominator, and that is personal growth. And that
Okay.
happens at any chapter of our life. So I don't think that it matters whether you're a 20-something-year-old woman unmarried or a 45-year-old woman married with 3 children.
Right.
Personal growth is always important.
Right. I totally agree. So let me ask you this. What areas of personal growth, when it comes to married women competing in beauty pageants, is your favorite? Because you competed at one time as well. Is it the evening gown? Is it the swimsuit, the athletic wear, the interview?
Oh,
What?
for me at the time, because I had small children, it was interview,
Okay.
because I felt like I was kind of in this world of little people and things like that. And I was so eager to kind of step out of that, step back into, the 2 degrees that I had
Yeah.
that I'd once obtained prior to having my children. But with that, everything else came, because I wanted to be my personal best in my appearance on stage. So that led to healthier diet and
Yes.
exercise. I wanted to be my best self. So every skill started to sharpen the other skill. I remember, I would take my daughter on walks and listen to audiobooks and things like that, just to kind of start getting things going. So for me, when I did mine several years ago, it was interview, but that was just because of where I was in that place of my life.
At that time. So let me ask you, do you have a favorite system?
Oh, um,
Yeah, with system, because you, again, I reached out to you when I first started, and you were able to help me fine tune which, systems that, I can connect with based on what I was doing. I was
yes,
heavy into platform,
yes.
and you were very knowledgeable. So, do you have a favorite?
And I'm glad you said that, because Cynthia, it really does matter person to person. So often in my DMs, I get asked, I want to do a pageant. Which pageant should I do? Um, Tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you someone who is active in their community and doing all kinds of different philanthropy work? Is there a charity or something that you are a part of? Or is that not your particular chapter of your life right now? Are you more focused in other areas? Um, and if that's the case, well, then there's a completely different pageant for you. Are you very active in your social media? Is this a platform that you have grown, that you would like to be acknowledged for the work that you're doing? Because there is a pageant that will acknowledge
Right,
your work in social media.
right.
So it really does depend person to person, because now we are so fortunate to have so many different
But
options.
what is your favorite? Rachel?
Um,
Okay, or which one do you like? Which one do you? Okay, here's the thing. Honestly, a lot of women in the community, when we announced that we were going to have this conversation, a lot of people think you have favoritism. They
Yeah.
think that you favor Mrs. America and Mrs.
Yeah.
World, that you favor the America organization.
Okay.
Do you favor the America organization?
I mean, first of all, Mrs. America has been around the longest.
Okay.
So let's give credit where credit is due. This pageant was the original. They were televised. They were the pageant. And so as a child, like I have grown up watching Mrs. America. There have been many pageants that have come after them, but they are the original. That is the one that women sought after for over, what are we, 50 some odd years now.
Right.
So it's hard to be not biased to a pageant that has been around for so many years. And then opening the door to Mrs. World for ladies to then step in and represent their nationality. I actually, because I have definitely given recommendations to other pageants. It's sad to hear that ladies think I have a preference because I do recommend other pageants. I do promote other pageants. You have so many state pageants with the Mrs. America pageant, so many ladies who I think are far more active in social media than some other pageant systems. And that shows up when I'm going through and looking for reposts and things like that. In terms of the number of tags that I have for ladies competing in the America system versus maybe a smaller pageant, I have ladies in the America system tagging me on the local level. As a matter of fact, I think that's how I first chatted with you, Cynthia. I don't even think you had a state title. Didn't even have a state title yet. Yeah. And when ladies are on the local level and are already tagging me in their work, wow, that really flags you. Because I'm like, this person is already thinking ahead. They are already thinking on the national level. You're not only tagging your state, you are because it just separates you. So when I'm looking for repost, there does tend to be more ladies in the America system because I just think that there's far more contestants.
Well, ladies, you hear it here first. Tag Mrs. Pageantry on the local level.
Yes.
Does social media really influence the outcome of pageants? How impactful do you believe social media presence is when it comes to the outcome of pageants?
What I will say, Cynthia, is that there is, especially in the Mrs. Pageantry division, it's a small circle. So if you have been active in social media, the likelihood that your judge has either seen you or because many of them follow my page, many of them follow the Mrs. America page, they follow the Mrs. United States, whichever pageant you're competing in, they are following those pages. So they're seeing the reposts. So I think that these things are important in the sense of if this is what you're saying that you do, you shouldn't just be doing it the week of the pageant. They should see you all along. They should see it all along in your journey that this is what you stand for. So I absolutely think that it matters. Having an active page and presence, definitely.
Let me ask you this now. I have a small bone to pick with you. You and I thought we were cool. We were at the Global Beauty Awards. We were chit-chatting. I mean, I saw a different side of you. You saw a different side of me. We had a ball. And then when I was going to judge Queen of the World this year, all of a sudden, it's like, why is Cynthia judging? And I'm like, Rachel is posting that? Like, why did you come for me, sis?
Cynthia, I have a job to be transparent and honest at all times in my reporting on Mrs. Pageantry. And that's not easy because I do have relationships in pageantry. So when it was first brought to me that it was a concern, my initial response, which I did, was I came to you first because I was like, how does this look for you?
Right, but remember I said that Alice, the CEO, she had already weeks ahead revealed who all of her judges were. No one else in pageantry ever do that, right? So everyone was aware of who the judges were. They knew that I was judging. I was one of 7. So it's like, and this platform, the Crown Voice, it stands for transparency. People have to know we're not hiding anything. We're not doing anything through the back door. It was transparent. So why were people still having an issue? Like you said, it's a small community, but we are letting people know Cynthia is one of the judges.
Right. And I think it was important to not only, it was great that she shared that. I don't think that everybody got that post and message, but as you are someone I have a relationship with, Jennifer Lloyd, now the current Mrs. Queen of the World, is a friend. I didn't want Jennifer's crowning moment to be lost in that there was a previous relationship, right? Because truth be told, going into it, Jennifer had a very strong chance of doing very well at that pageant, regardless of the judge. Didn't matter if it
Exactly.
was,
Right.
didn't matter, and I communicated that. Didn't matter if it was you, didn't matter who it was. Jennifer brought her A game and it showed. And so she's very deserving of winning the title. However, when I have done this long enough that I know when the whispers start, the roaring's coming.
Mm.
And so Jennifer's work that she had done in preparation did not need to be questioned because of any of the judges, because no matter who it was, she deserved to win.
Right.
And so it was important that message be further transparent on the front end, so that we didn't question her on the back end. And I think the transparency made it so that was not a concern, or that did not come up after Jennifer won.
Right. And
Um,
again, I was one of 7 judges. There's no way I can influence
right.
6 other highly respected, influential leaders who were judges. Let's talk about judging. Um, what do you think? How can we Do you think the way judges are selected now, or the judging structure for pageants, particularly for married women, do you feel that it's perfect the way it is, it's good the way it is, it works, don't fix it, or what would you like to see different?
I can't say, every pageant system has their selection is different, number of judges, and certainly the criteria is different. Um, for example, I know that we have the Mrs. World organization coming out, so I'll speak of that one specifically.
Okay.
I'd like to see the Mrs. World pageant have more diversity. I'd like there to be a more international presence. At the Mrs. World level, there are women who are traveling from their home countries. English is maybe their second and third language. And I think that sometimes it takes someone from another country, who also speaks 2 or 3
Mm.
languages, to appreciate um, what these women are bringing, what they have worked so hard to do to get here. And sometimes I think that can be lost. So I'd like to see there to be more diversity, more international presence at Mrs. World this year.
For those of you just joining us, I am speaking with Rachel, the founder and CEO of Mrs. Pageantry. She is a trailblazer in the industry. She was the first, correct me if I'm wrong, to promote, highlight, and celebrate married women in beauty pageants with complete coverage. Rachel, let's talk about your top 15.
Okay.
Let's
Which
talk
which
about
pageant?
your top 15. I was on your top 15, so I was happy, right? But I competed at international. But at the same time, there was a young woman back there crying her eyes
Oh,
out. I didn't make the top 15. And I was like, what are you talking about? Mrs. Pageantry, everyone. And I was like, oh my Lord. And that's when it hit me. It's like, wow, Rachel, I don't know if Rachel understands what
mhm.
she is doing, like the impact she is making, in this industry. Women want to be on your top 15.
So Cynthia, when I first did my research to start this blog, like I said, I reached out to other of these major, Road to USA, Road to Miss Universe. I mean, these are pageant pages that have been around for years, and asking them what things worked. And when they talked about the predictions, it's like, ooh. Um, I have a committee that works with me that helps me with content and things like that. And so even when I'm creating my prediction, it's not just
Okay.
me. Or
Okay.
the week of the pageant, I always reach out to my followers and who are we following? Who do we think is going to do well? And I can't tell you how many times one of my followers or someone in my committee will bring something to my attention that maybe I would have missed. Oh, did you know that
Mm.
this young lady has been an interview winner 3 years in a row? Oh, did you know that this person, things that would make you look at them differently, things that you don't get in photos, things that you don't get in their cute Instagram reels
Reels,
walking in
yeah.
their gowns. So these are things that are all going into consideration. I also want to say, I mean, for the last several years, I've been with like 95, 98% accuracy.
You have.
So what I'm sharing is like, I think maybe a day in advance, but but I tend to try, and then now I wait until after interview because I don't want anyone to um, feel some kind of way prior to interview. But for those of us who follow pageantry, it's a sport.
Right.
This is
So
a
you don't tell me you're going to stop the
No,
predictions.
no,
Okay. Okay.
I am all about promoting female positivity.
Right.
So I did stop doing it before interview. I now wait to do it after interview,
Okay.
and now I've even started. I don't even do it until once the pageant is started because, to be quite honest, ladies, you are in the middle of the pageant. Put your phone away,
Right.
right? So I have I've put it off until all of these things, trying to really have this for us who are following pageantry, who love this sport and are eager to keep up with the scores. um so those are things that I have in place because it is about positivity and pageantry. Always is the most
So
important.
this is a lot of
It
work.
is.
This is
Yes,
a lot of work.
it is. And when you think about how many pageants we have now in Mrs. Pageantry, I mean, we have so many. It's amazing. It's
What would you
amazing.
say to someone, because I have a lot of followers, I have a global following, and
Yes.
many of them are not in pageants. What would you say to a woman who is watching right now and she's married? What would you say to her if she's passionate about a project or her community service and she was thinking about or considering beauty pageants? What would you say to her?
Oh, I mean, Cynthia, have you not loved it? I mean,
I
have you?
do.
I'm sure if they have followed you and your journey, I mean, it's incredible. The people that you meet, the lives that you touch.
It is.
It does give you a platform to further your voice for whatever philanthropy or project that you are trying to promote. And also, I would say, as a mother, to be this example to my children, to show them, we can show them better than we
Right,
can tell them the importance of
right.
serving our community. Um, it's a journey. It's something that is different for every person, but it has absolutely changed my life for the better. I think, Cynthia, even with all the things that we've gone through with pageantry, wouldn't you say it's given you relationships and
Yeah,
friendships that you may not have otherwise had?
it's true.
Yeah,
So true.
yeah,
So true.
it's an incredible thing. I'm so grateful for what Mrs. Pageantry has done in my life, and I encourage anyone who's thinking about it to start your research, look into pageants, follow the pages, follow their national queens on Instagram or Facebook to just kind of see what a year looks like for them and see if this is something that you would be interested in. Those are the things I think are most important. Sometimes I think ladies get into pageants and then there's these, oh, I didn't know, but the research is very important, very important.
We both are women of color, and your page is very diverse. Let's talk about women of color, Black women in pageantry. Have you seen change? Have you seen change for the better? Because a lot of women are still get disappointed. I get a lot of anonymous DMs. People think it's not fair. What do you think as far as women of color in pageantry today?
I've been very excited for the recent numbers at our last America pageant because that one has just passed in August. I want to say those were probably some of the highest numbers of diversity that we've
Mm,
had in years. And that was just exciting. It's exciting for everyone because it's a beautiful thing in our Miss for America and our Mrs. America, Mrs. American, because of the trickle effect for that. Their families have now seen this. I know when I did pageantry, I introduced pageantry in my
yeah.
circle. Many of my friends didn't know anyone who had ever done it. So we're starting something. We're sharing it. We're keeping it going. We're growing pageantry. So it's a beautiful thing. Um, I and this is what it comes back to judging. Always want to see diversity in the judging panel. I always think that's important.
Okay. So more diversity in the judging panel.
Always think that's important. Always, always.
I believe I was one of the first women, correct me if I'm wrong, who got on a pageant stage with no hair, especially for a married woman. I was shaved head. Um, didn't look like most of the women who competed in black women who competed in beauty pageants, who most of them have their nice flowy hair. Yours is natural, I know that, but I'm just saying, just a lot of hair to fit uh the 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 long-standing standard of beauty in the pageant world.
Mhm.
So I did not look like that. If I were
Well,
to compete today, I would probably be competing with my hair like in a little twist or in an afro. Do you think, as a married woman, um, what do you think about the standards of beauty being represented, the different standards of beauty for married women in beauty pageants?
every pageant system is different. And I think there are certain pageants that celebrate differences, diversity, uniqueness, a little bit more than
True.
others, right? And this is where I think the research really comes into play and is important. Are Do you have a very beautiful, unique hairstyle? Do you have tattoos? Do you have scars from surgeries? All of these there are certain pageant systems that I believe celebrate that. And there are some others that I think are a little bit more traditional.
Right.
um, Not right or wrong, but just I think when you're doing your research and thinking about how will I best be be able to be my authentic self during this journey, I think that should be something that you consider when you're looking for a pageant to compete in.
We know pageants are business. When I first said that, people were like, whoa, yeah, it is a business.
Mhm.
It is a business. Doesn't the business have the right to have their standard of beauty, to have their template of beauty, to have the way they want? If they pick the same queens every year,
Mhm.
don't they have a right as a business to have their target market? Should women who go into that target market complain if they don't fit into the target market and do not place?
Well, it's very easy to quickly say that I didn't win because
I'm black, or I'm
X,
curvy,
right?
or I have,
I
yeah,
remember the year that Zosie won Miss Universe with her bald head.
right.
There was a whole lot of hair on that stage, and she came in not only with a bald head, but what many people were referring to as a boy cut,
Yes,
right? In her evening gown,
in African
and won.
attire as well.
Yes, yes, and won. And it really just when you talk about different judges, different day, the dynamic, also how she owned it. I mean, she moved with such confidence that you don't remember if there was hair down her back, around, because she moved in such a way that was so powerful and so striking. You couldn't see anything
Yes.
else. So I think it is so easy to say that, this is why this person didn't win. And so often when we pull the layers back, there tends to be more to the story. Because I have seen just incredible women emerge and do so well in pageantry in the years past that I don't think we would have ever seen them even place. And I mean, I could give a list, but that just shows you that pageantry is changing.
I love that you brought up that example because, yes, she infiltrated, literally, for lack of a better word, she infiltrated that system
Yes,
with her unique
yes,
presence, made a
and never
statement, and
and
won.
never changed it.
Yeah.
Never changed it. I mean, that was my year 2019. So that was the year our beloved Chesley won. I mean, it was an incredible, as a woman of color, that was a great year to be a queen.
Yeah.
I don't want to lie
Yeah.
to you. We
Yeah.
were on we were on Clyde. We thought we were all winning. We were just all winning, right? And
We
then
thought we were all winning.
we were all winning.
It
And
was the
then
Black year.
it was the Black year. And that was the year Natalie won. I mean, Natalie and I were like, best friends during pageantry. So hey, if I wasn't gonna win, I couldn't be more excited that my Sash sister Natalie took the crown that year. It was just, I mean, and that Chesley was wearing her hair natural, Zosie was wearing her hair short, and we were winning pageants, baby.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah,
It
and
was just,
yeah,
it gave you
it was a
chills.
time. And
It
then
was a
the next
time.
year, here comes Yolanda at Mrs. International, and it was like, okay,
Yes.
we're all going to international.
Yes. Yes, it was such a, and this is what I loved about it. I loved that energy, and I so was, this year with there being so many women of color, I was excited for more of that.
Yeah.
When you talk about hair, I love when we step out of our box, when we do things. Justice Kelly, her year when she was first runner-up in America, and she wore her hair curly and full.
Yeah.
I would love to see us mix it up. We've had um,
Yeah.
Yep, we've had ladies now who have competed in braids.
I love it.
So just showing just the different ways that we showcase our beauty. It's exciting. It's exciting.
What are your thoughts on the current state of the beauty pageant industry? How do you see it evolving in the next couple of years?
Right now, there is a lot of disruption in the Miss Universe, Miss USA organization, and I
Yes.
only bring that up to say they are kind of the center point of pageantry. I know so many of us who are competing in different pageants, we will look at them for evening gowns and things like that. So when the house is rocky, oh, the house is rocky right now. So I will be really happy to see whether it's new management or what happens there. I would really like to see things get a little bit more stable, and so that queens can experience their full year, and just because it affects us all. It
Yeah.
affects us all.
Yeah.
They continue to make changes, and therefore all of our Mrs. Pageantry are kind of trying to like catch up. So I think this year we had some numbers moving around because so many ladies were competing in the Miss USA or Miss USA pageants because they opened it up for married women. They
Right.
opened up for ages.
What is your
So
thoughts on that? Some women, who were married competed. What do you think? How did that work out? Like,
it's
what are your
always
thoughts
hard.
on
It's
it?
always hard when you're the first,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're the first. But wow, was it inspiring, and especially certain ladies who I feel brought the A level competition.
Like Shantae.
Shantae
Shantae,
McIntyre. If
yes.
you don't know this name, we're going to tag it. Shantae was first runner-up at the Miss California USA pageant. She placed first runner-up out of like 80 women, like
Wow.
80 women.
Mom of
This
three,
is a
right?
this
Mother
is
of
a
three.
this is a
Yeah.
41-year-old mother of three children. Let's hear one, two, three, four
Four.
children. I have to think about all their names, right? I mean, she is. Shantae and I have been friends for years, and I have followed her pageant journey. And just the reason why I talk about her journey is because she shares, how she has been in preparation for this. So to do what she did is, I mean, it's so inspiring. But that is the level. That is the level that I think you have to bring it if you're going to compete in the Miss USA
Exactly.
organization.
Again, she infiltrated
She
the
did.
system. She came
Correct.
in. She
Correct.
superimposed her
Right.
presence. That's
She did her research. She did her due diligence.
that's
Like
true.
the Miss USA organization is very different from the Mrs. pageants. And so shifting your coaching, shifting your mindset is very, very important. There were so many ladies that we were rooting for, and I felt they gave us very much Mrs. pageant energy in a
Right.
miss in a miss platform, and those two things are not the same.
Oh yes, Yolanda just corrected. She said she won. She didn't win the same year. She to 2020 was the year I fell like okay and ended up in a booth during pageant week. Okay. Sorry about that, Yolanda. But I think what year did Yolanda win? Was it 2021 or
Oh yeah, it was like 2 years after me, so maybe 2021. And
2021?
Yolanda that year, very memorable. Yolanda wore a black gown, guys.
Yes.
A
Yeah.
sister in a black gown had me sweating.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching it with some of my, pageant friends, and when we saw the gown, we were like, "Wait, is the sister about to wear
Yeah.
black?" She was stunning, and really just reminds you not to be stuck in the box of what color to wear, what stage to
Exactly.
wear. Like, I love that and Yolanda has been in pageantry for years, so she has certainly heard all of the rumors and myths about the winner wears white and things like that. And
Right.
to come
Especially at
out in
international.
Right, and to come out in black was very It's risky,
You
Yolanda. We liked it. We liked it.
know what? Based on what we are talking about right now, what we're basically saying is it's not only about winning and following the standards that have been in place, but truly going in and making an impact. Making an impact. And whether you win or not, there are ways people will remember you. Rachel, I say all the time, you don't ever have, I don't need, just let me get on stage. Just give me a crown and a sash, and I'll create my own opportunities. That's all
Well,
I need.
and that's the truth. Arbany, our former Miss USA, talked about that we all have gifts. And I loved when she gave the speech about we all have gifts. Everybody has their gift. And after I competed at Mrs. America, I mean, I was devastated. I was devastated to not win. I was devastated to not place top 15. But here we are later. I'm running one of the #1 Mrs. Pageantry blogs, right? I've got over 15,000 between my Facebook and my Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that I didn't allow the one no to keep me from just pursuing what feels so good to me. I love pageantry. I love being part of it. I love promoting women and their stories. And so whatever your gift is, like, pursue your gift. Doesn't matter if 5 judges on one day decided that you were not their Mrs. America. So yeah, no, you don't. That's why I said you didn't need me for a platform, Cynthia. You are your own
No,
platform.
you got it started. You were the one that started it. Once we did that interview,
No, that
and
was
it was like,
that was
okay, it's
fun.
on and popping now.
That was that was fun for sure. For sure.
Well, Rachel, I'm not going to keep you. This was a lovely, lovely conversation. If you have any questions, my friends, feel free. We're going to reshare this live on all platforms. Even when it's when you see the replay, you can still ask a question in the comments, and I'm sure Rachel or myself we will answer. Rachel, what's in the future for Mrs. Pageantry? I mean, where are you going?
I
Do we see
have
podcasts?
we
What do
I
we
know
see?
we never got a chance to do our recap of Mrs. America, and I'm just still itching at the bit to get some of this off my tongue. So I'm hoping to coordinate with a few pageant coaches. I get together with pageant coaches and we review pageants, and then we come on live and we talk about the pageant. We talk about what we saw, what things would you like to see differently. We talk about what we think happened, how, who was robbed. It's a really fun conversation. So I'm looking forward to that. In terms of, I know you think that we always talk about Mrs. World. There are other pageants coming up, but Mrs. World is coming up.
Just,
So,
Rachel, I think you like Mrs. World. I really,
we've
really do.
we've got those coming up. I have, I shared with ladies, which they were surprised to hear about the eligibility requirements for Mrs. World. It's just, it's residency. Let's see, was it residency? It's nationality. And there's like one other thing. But basically, I mean, ladies, if you are of a certain nationality, but you live in the US, but you can prove your connection to your country, like, if that title is available, you can absolutely take that title.
For
Cynthia, we would love to see you at Mrs.
Wait,
World.
you're saying are you part of the Mrs. World competition?
I am not part of the Mrs. World. I am in no
I
way.
feel something going
I
on
am in no
here.
way affiliated. But I am a fan of pageantry. And listen, I have had so many relationships with so many different pageant systems over the years.
Yolanda
And
say that's not what Mrs. World told her. But let me tell you something about Mrs. World. Because let me tell you about something. There's some sketchy stuff going on with their judging as well.
okay,
But here's my experience with Mrs. World. When you and I first met, I was Mrs. Framingham America, going to Mrs. Massachusetts America, on my way to Mrs. World. So I feel I can tell you this because we've had an interview before where you allowed me to share my grievance. Um, After Mrs. Massachusetts America, I didn't win. So I asked my director for the scores because she previously said that, we'll get our scores. The next thing I know, um, the next thing I know, I'm being accused. Someone sends a letter out saying that two of the judges were best friends, that the woman who won Mrs. Massachusetts that year, that she was the official printer. She printed the program books, the signage. She's been at the pageant for 5 years. She's friends with all of the judges, blah, blah, blah. That person, whoever wrote the letter, was going to sue the director. Well, guess what? They all blamed me because my husband is an attorney. So they were all like, oh, Cynthia's the one that wrote the letter. And I'm like, you guys don't know me. If I'm going to accuse you of something or write a letter, I'm going to do a press conference. I don't do things and run and hide. I'm going to let it be known that I was the one that have this problem. I'm going to call the entire media. I'm going to do a press conference, but it wasn't me. So all of the women, Rachel, that whole clique, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, America, they banned me. They unfollowed me. They blocked me because they accused me of being the one that wrote that letter. I never wrote that letter. Again, you know me. I have a big mouth. If it was me, I would have made an event out of it. So the next thing I did was I contacted Mrs. World because my next step was to go to Mrs. World. I was going to represent Haiti, where my mother and my family are from, or the Bahamas, where I was born. She told me no, straight out, no, you're a troublemaker. That's not going to happen. So I got a stigma. I was stigmatized for something I did not do by that organization. So that's my story.
Listen, I'm very sorry. I remember when all of those things were happening. I'm very sorry.
I think I told you about it.
Yeah, I'm very sorry you got dragged into that. We talked earlier about pageantry being a business. It's a business. It's a brand, right? And I see year after year, ladies forget how small these circles are. And sometimes when we have grievances with pageants, directors who are just people themselves who have chosen to take the job of being a director, they are not perfect. The directors of national pageants are not perfect. We now have the opportunity to use Instagram and Facebook to voice these grievances. And whether that allows a pageant system to address it privately, whether it allows them to research it privately, because once you share something with 10,000 people, it makes it tougher for me to even look into this and correct it, because now I've got 10,000 people trying to help me do the same. So I think in these instances, it's difficult because the pageant system may see, okay, here's where a person may have had some challenges. If they have had some challenges with our system in the past, this may not be a relationship that they want to continue, because it's also a relationship.
No, I totally get it, but I was just like, there was no effort made to clarify what happened. I mean,
Yes.
why would I just got here. Why am I suing anyone? Right?
Yes.
I don't even know what's going, I haven't even got my feet wet yet to
Yes, but
find out,
you know, I hear this all the time where ladies have problems with certain pageants and then they go back to them. And in my mind, like, girl, if you broke up with him, why do you want to be with him? Like, you don't want to be with him.
Oh, wait, let's talk about that before you go. Hold on. Let's talk about that. The women who keep going back and back and back to pageants, I don't get it. If you went to a pageant more than twice, I'm going to say twice, and you are always a runner up, why do you keep going back?
Well,
I don't get it. And then I hear things like,
I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with continuing to recompete, because each time a person is seeing personal growth. It's no different, you know, if that is what your dream is, you got to pursue your dream, right? Because every time, I can tell you right now, I have romanticized many times about competing again. What I know now, Cynthia, Cynthia, what I know now, if I was going to compete again, I didn't know it then. You don't know. You know, I have a good friend who always tells me, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
There's so many things I would have done differently competing for Mrs. America if I knew what I know now. And so when ladies recompete, I'm not mad at them where they pick up something new. They sharpen another tool in their box, right? Cynthia, even if you were to compete now,
Girl,
baby.
no one is letting me compete in their pageant. Not with this platform. No one is letting me compete in their pageant.
No,
But
you might need to.
I do want to go frolic on someone's stage. I do
I
want.
would love to see that, but you're right. I feel like now they know. It's difficult. This is what's difficult about pageantry is that, once you use a voice, it's tough.
Yeah, it is. I'm getting a hot flash, by the way. So,
Oh no, it's
yeah.
it's a small circle, but yeah, if I knew what I know now, so no, I'm not upset when ladies have sharpened a tool or they have grown and then they want to compete again. Yeah, you absolutely should. And even more so in the same pageant, because if you jump to another pageant, well, now you're not even talking the same
Well,
preparation.
Alice
It's not the
is
same.
agreeing with you. Alice from Queen of the World says it's great to recompete, but it's also important to find the most suitable system. I don't know. I don't know about. I don't know. I mean, if I competed and I didn't win, I didn't place, I may go back a second year. But after the second year, if I don't win, obviously the system and I are not a good fit. We're not a good match.
You know,
No, I'm not doing it again.
I'm not able to see the comments, but I'm glad that Alice chimed in. Now, let me tell you about Alice. For those of you who, if you're not into pageantry, I am a pageant lover. Alice is the CEO and owner of Queen of the World, but before Alice was a boss babe, she also happened to be a pageant queen, and she was Mrs. World. And not only was she Mrs. World, but she was Mrs. World, and she was worlding in a way that Mrs.
Yes.
World really had not seen for a very long time.
Right.
Traveling the world, the work that she did. But prior to Mrs. World, she was Mrs. New York.
Right.
And when Alice competed as Mrs. New York, I don't feel like they showed her any love. She booted up, she came back, she competed as Mrs. World, and the exact same people she competed at Mrs. America, who beat her at Mrs. America, had to stand there and watch her be crowned at Mrs. World. So come back and recompete. Come back again. Come back again and make them watch you get crowned. Okay? Like, what? She came back to Mrs. World, and the exact people who won had to watch her get crowned.
Yeah, she did. She did.
That's what happened. This is why I love pageantry. I love it. I love it.
Someone else says, "What is a suitable system? I don't do anything twice." Yeah, I'm with Mrs. Stamps right there. I'm like, once I'm in, my feelings get hurt. Yeah. Okay, in all transparency.
But don't you feel like you learn? Don't you feel like you come out of it and you say, "Oh, I would have did that differently." And now when you come back, you got more power. Look at former Mrs. America, Nicole Cook. Nicole served as Mrs. Indiana America twice. Both times she made top 50. I think both times she made top 6, right? She made, like, the first time, and then that state allowed contestants to come back again. What?
Okay.
She came
twice.
Back. She came back to Mrs. America again.
Okay,
what
twice.
You know? Yes, she's done Mrs. America twice. What you know now, you didn't know then.
You know, that's true, because what I know now, the first time I competed, I can't even look at that video. I'm like, what in the world?
Yes.
What in the world was I doing?
When I look at my dress, should have never wore that. Never wore that. What? But I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't know. And this is why you have so many pageant coaches running around, because they know. They know now.
Let's talk about that. What's with this trend of, I won or I didn't win, and now I'm going to be a pageant coach? It's like the life coaching. I remember I used to be a life coach almost 15 years ago on social media. It wasn't popular at all. So just like life coaching, pageant coaching is like, oh my goodness. What are your thoughts on that?
It's so, for me, it's resume. It's when you're competing, you need to look at what pageants has your pageant coach competed in, what pageants have they coached people in, what has been their track record. There are queens who have done different pageants. And so when they are preparing you, not only have they done them, they have coached in them. So for me, a queen who has only competed in one system, she can't coach you in this. Or even for that matter, who have they coached? What is their track record? Ask these questions, because there's so many now who are unqualified, very
But what
unqualified.
qualifies? Let's talk about that. What qualifies a pageant coach? Because what I've learned is I used to say you can't teach something if you haven't experienced it, which now I say is not
Mm-hmm.
true. Because there are some people who are good at researching, there are some people who are good at strategizing, but they're not good at implementing.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people like me, I am great at implementing, but I don't have the time to figure out strategies and all of that stuff. So my husband helps me with that.
Mm-hmm.
So now I say, you can be a good coach even if you never won, because you can see what needs to be done. You can see where the person is lacking and you can help guide them.
This is where I
What do you
think
think?
just the relationships and just how long a person has been involved in pageantry really
Okay.
matters. Because
Okay.
there's so much, as you know, there's so much in pageantry that's not just in the three criteria. It's not just swimsuit, evening gown. No, no,
Right.
no. The politics are far deeper than that. Understanding why at a Mrs. pageant that you're not going to wear a two-piece.
And how Mrs. America is different from Mrs. International, and different from Queen of the World, and different from what I'm not going to say that other pageant that I was in, but
But do you
yeah.
see what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
but these are things that you only know if you are
If
involved
you
in
are involved.
pageantry and you know the differences. There's so many ladies who are coaching now that's so confusing to me, because just because you won, you're on your day, that Tuesday in September, doesn't mean that you can now go and coach a different person from a different walk of life, a person from a different
Come
ethnicity.
on.
These are
Yes.
these are all factors. So I remember my year, that was very important to me to reach out to other Black queens, of just asking them about hair and all the things. I had never done a spray tan. What? So having a pageant coach who understands those things, I think, is very important. But doing your research, asking them about who they've coached, what system they've been part of, what has been their track record, and how have the queens that they have coached done? That's important. How have they done? I have my recommendations. You can DM me if you're
Oh,
curious.
you do.
I do.
On that note, we're going to end with transparency. Let's talk about transparency. It's a buzzword now in the world of beauty pageants. What do you think about transparency? Can these businesses truly be transparent?
I think it's difficult to be transparent in business. In pageantry, it has come up, the scoring, wanting the scoring to be available. Pageant systems have tried to do that and it has backfired for them. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be a while before we see that again.
I know International did what, a year ago, 2 years ago when I was there.
2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not doing that
Yeah.
anymore.
That they're never going to do that again. um, but I think that there are some areas where transparency is absolutely, um, absolutely possible. I just think in pageantry as a business as a whole, it's difficult. So there's so much work to do, but at the same time, I'm just so proud of how far we've come in terms of diversity, all of the different pageant systems. I love that there are so many different options now. I love that there's pageants that I think celebrate diversity and differences, Queen of the World being one of them. And you can see that even in their queens, the crowning class, the last like 2-3 years,
Yes.
they've always had a very diverse class. So yeah, just doing your research to see where there's a better fit. But
Well,
yeah.
when we first started, I told my viewers that you are going to reveal why women are competing in beauty pageants. I told them this conversation will shock them. Um, Ended this conversation with why women are competing in beauty pageants.
They're doing it to be their best selves. I think we all are desire to be our best selves, and there's something about the journey of going through pageantry that really allows us to sharpen ourselves. It's what draws me back to it, what makes me think about when you and I say about just put me on the stage. It's that best self image that we have in our head. And what you and I have both revealed is that you don't really need the crown to achieve that. But I think that that's what so many ladies are seeking.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was fun,
Yeah,
very
it's
enlightening conversation.
always when we're talking with you, girl.
And I'm telling people there's another side of Rachel. Rachel is fun in person when she's not Mrs. Pageantry. Rachel is
We
hilarious.
had such a good time in Seattle. We really got to do that again. That was
Yeah.
like the best girls' weekend ever. So
You should. Are you going
um,
to go next year to the
I
Global
think
Beauty
so.
Awards?
I think so. We're all settled and back in our home here. So yeah, now that we're all good and settled and moved back, I think I'm ready to travel.
All right. So it's going to be a reunion.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Have a wonderful afternoon,
All right,
Rachel.
you too.
Okay.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.